Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. I'm Wendy Haney and coming to you from Eastern Tennessee. Sorry, couldn't help the y'all. Had dinner with our neighbors across the street, Cindy and Wayne, and we started laughing thinking, I wonder how soon I'll start picking up Eastern Tennessee accent, and it will be really interesting watching my videos as my accent changes. So we shall see. It's only been 2 months, so no, I'm not saying y'all yet, but it will be interesting. Well, finally ready to do a real video after months and months of moving. So today, I'm going to show you how to make the Balkan puzzle. Yup, it looks a little putsy and complicated, but you know what? It really isn't. It's, and I'm going to start my timer there. It's actually pretty straightforward, and I'll have to apologize because for those of you that have watched me in the past, I always have something behind me, something to pick up stuff. So now everything's not where I'm used to it being. So let's try this. So here we have our block, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. And you may be thinking, oh, these are flying geese. Well, yeah, they could be, but personally, I avoid flying geese if I can, and there's no reason to. What we're gonna do today is work on an 8-inch finished block. And if we look at this, it's actually a 4-patch. If you divide this up nice and simply, we're dealing with 4 blocks. And it's not really apparent when you're looking at the block like this, but as I was putting it together, all of these blocks are identical. So you can put them together and put together a whole bunch of 4 patches and then come back to the table and put together your bigger block. The other cool thing is we've got our 4 patch, but guess what? Each of these 4 patches are 4 patches. Yup. Excuse me. Super simple. And if you'll notice, at least when you're doing a color scheme like I did, which I used 3 colors only, the background and then 2 other colors, you're dealing with half square triangles. So guess what? If we're looking at our teal here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 of them. See the purple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Guess what? You need 8 half square triangles of each color fabric with your background fabric. Therefore, we've got a super simple way to make 8 half square triangles from a square. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is not as complicated as it looks. Now, you can do more things and make it a little more complicated with additional fabrics if you'd like. And I will do some mock-ups so you can see what some opportunities are with additional fabrics. But with that said, it'll complicate it a little bit with how many half square triangles you need and your layout potentially. So keep that in mind when you're looking to expand to more than 3 fabrics. Okay, let's get started. Now the Balkan Puzzle Block is not new. This block has been around since 1929 from the Capers Weekly. I don't know if that was a newspaper or a magazine or whatever, but it's been around since 1929. Wow. If I'd read my notes, let's try that again. 1927. Oh, the joy of getting back into doing quilt videos. So what I do when I try and find quilt patterns to show you, quilt blocks, is not just finding something traditional that you might be looking for, but showing you something that maybe you're not familiar with. I go to my big book of Encyclopedia of Pieced quilt patterns, and I just start flipping through in the evening and go, oh, well, that one looks interesting. This one caught my eye for a couple reasons. One, because looking at it, let's use this one. Looking at it, it's really kind of a cool block, but you go, I don't know. Am I up for the challenge of that? It could be kind of neat, but oh, and looking at it in the book, you're like, oh, do we have flying geese? Oh, I don't want to deal with flying geese. And how do we piece that in rows? Guess what? It's so simple. As I showed you, you parse it out and you're talking about a 4-patch and lots of half square triangles. Okay, now that you understand why I chose this one, let's get to it. The cool thing about this block is that we're using 3 fabrics. Our background, a blue, and well, in the picture here, a purple one. I'm using blue and green. And there's 8 half square triangles of each. And I have the perfect method for you to make a half square triangle from, bingo, 2 squares of fabric. So yep, for each block, you're going to need 2 of your background colors and 1 each of your colors. This is for each quilt block. So in this case, I'm making just 1, so I need 2 background and my 2 colors. Okay, I'm inserting this quick little clip of video because, oops, as I was recording my original video, I forgot to tell you what size squares you need to create. Yep, so you're gonna need to know what size squares that you need to cut for this work and that I am working with. You have one of 2 methods you can use for this. One is no trimming, meaning you're accurate with your 1/4 inch off the center and you trim, you cut things perfectly correctly. Basically then, oopsie, I said basically, oh darn. Anyway, then those half square triangles should be exactly what you need. No trimming necessary. So if that's the case and you're really good with things and you don't want to trim, your math is your finished block size. And in this case, we're working with an 8-inch finished block, which means each half square triangle is 2, 4, 6, 8. So 2 inches is our finished block size for our half square triangle. So that's what our FB is, finished block size. Multiply it by 2, and then you're gonna add 1.75. So for our 2-inch finished half square triangle, 4 plus 1.75 gives you 5.75, and that's what size to cut your squares. Go ahead and give that a try. It means no waste, and if you've got completely accurate half square triangles when you're done, sweet. So once we get through everything, you're going to end up with 2.5-inch unfinished half square triangles. So this is really good if you're very accurate. I don't do it that way. I need a little wiggle room. I'm going to be honest with you. So I do the trim up method, even though it takes more time to trim up all my half square triangles. Math is very simple, similar. Finished block size times 2 plus anywhere from 2 to 2.5. It just depends on how much extra fabric you want to give yourself to trim up. You'll see as I proceed in this video, I went with 2, so I'm trimming off very little. And sometimes my half square triangle is pretty much spot on, so I don't need to trim much. If you discover that you're a little more off and you'd like to give yourself a little more wiggle room, a little more trimming, then bump this additional number to 2.25 or go for 2.5. Totally up to you. You figure out what works for you. Math is the same, 4 plus, in this case, I'm doing 2. I am now working with a 6-inch block to make 8 half square triangles, 8 2-inch finished half square triangles. So you figure out what works best for you, size-wise, do one, see if it works, and then cut the rest of them as you need. Now, we'll switch back to the other video where I show you what to do with these squares that you've cut out. So, I'm gonna flip this up here because my rotating mat is like perfect for this. So what you do is choose which square is gonna work best for marking on. In this case, my yellow is going to, and I'm going to use a good old-fashioned mechanical pencil. It is a 0.5 millimeter mechanical pencil. Nice, fine line. Anytime you're marking your lines, the finer the pencil, the marking utensil you're using, the better off you're gonna be with accuracy. So what we're gonna do is we wanna draw a line corner to corner. X marks the spot. Yep. And that's why my rotating mat I love, because I don't have to do weird gyrations of my pencil or ruler to mark it. Okay, so all we've got is an X corner to corner. What we're going to do is actually sew a 1/4 inch on either side of those lines. Now, some people, no problem with that at all. You got a 1/4 inch foot, you put it on the center line, and you got your 1/4 inch on either side. Other people would prefer to have the line marked where they're stitching. No problem. You've got your line in the middle, so you just take your ruler again, and you're gonna add a couple extra lines. Put your, there I go, I flipped my fabric instead of using my rotating mat. So you put your 1/4 inch line on the center and draw a line a 1/4 inch on either side. So, I don't know, better there? Huh? Maybe you still can't see it completely well. You get the gist, I'm sure. 1/4 inch on either side of the line. So what we're gonna do then is you're gonna take your 2 squares, a background piece and a colored piece, and you're gonna put them together, right sides together. I pin them in on each of my sides so I'm away from where I'm stitching, and then you're gonna take it to the sewing machine and you're gonna sew a 1/4 inch off center, 1/4 inch off center, both directions. So you're gonna have 4 lines on this. I am gonna go finish marking and sew up both of my squares, and then I'll show you how to cut it so you end up with 8 half square triangles. Now that I have my seams, my lines stitched, 1/4 inch on either side of the middle, now the magic comes in as far as how we cut it. This is where my rotating mat is really handy, because the least you can touch it as you're cutting it, the more accurate you will be. The first cut you want to do is top to bottom, right through the middle. And because I did a 6-inch square, it should be 3 inches. So I should be able to line the top and the bottom up, and it'll go right through the middle, and it's gonna be accurate and straight. Now with that said, we do have some wiggle room. So we're good. So we're gonna do our cut top to bottom. Be very careful when you lift your ruler up as to not shift your fabric. And then I'm gonna rotate, and so I rotated it, so now I'm gonna do my other cut. There was my first cut, now I'm gonna do another vertical cut. 3 inches to center. I'm holding down on the ruler very firmly to keep everything in place, and I'm very careful when I lift off. Okay, we now have 4 pieces, we still don't have 8. Now you're gonna cut your diagonal. So those are the lines you initially drew, which was corner to corner. We're gonna cut those. And as you cut, your middles they do have a tendency to shift a little, but as you know, so if you're uncomfortable and things have shifted, take your pieces apart and you've got your line. So just cut each of these 4 squares in half on the line and you'll be fine. There we go. And now we're gonna do one more. Corner to corner. Okay. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's my 8. Now, we have our 8 half square triangles. Now, what I discovered as I worked on this block is whatever fabric you use for these that are going to be on your outside and make kind of what looks like a flying geese, but it's your outside triangles. Those you want to take 4 of your squares. I already cut those. 4 of your squares and press one direction. In this case, I pressed towards the background fabric. And then the other 4, I pressed in the opposite direction to the dark. That will help as you put these together because those 2 are going to be sewed together. So having your seams pressed in the opposite direction really helps nest those seams nicely. So for whatever fabric that is, 8 half square triangles, 4 of them pressed opposite directions. Now as far as these are concerned, I found no discernible difference that I could figure out whether to press to the light or the dark. So I'm just pressing all of those to the dark and I did not have any problems with those. Okay, so you're gonna take those and I usually finger press them first and then press with the iron. Okay, now, as I said, I chose to make my starting square bigger than I would need, so I had wiggle room to trim, which means after I press, each of these half square triangles needs to be trimmed up. So you're gonna take your half square triangle, get a ruler that has an angle on it. I love my OmniGrids because it has a 90-degree angle, corner to corner. So what I can do is I can put it on here. I put that 90-degree angle on the angle of my half square triangle. This needs to be 2.5 inches. So I center it in there, giving me, here's my 2.5 here, which means I have plenty to trim on that side, and then I have a little bit to trim up here. So I trim that side. Flip it over. Now this side should go exactly on my 2.5 inch, and my angle should be perfect, therefore room to trim. And depending on what size you made your squares to start with and how much wiggle room you gave yourself for trimming, I added an extra 1/4 inch, so this is kind of what I'm ending up trimming off, and it works just fine for me. And some squares, half square triangles, I have very, very little, but it's enough to allow me to shift them to make sure I have 8 perfectly square half square triangles. Now, I'm gonna go trim those all up, and then we're ready to start putting it all together. I now have my pile of half square triangles. Let's see, I should have kept these divided here. My one set of blocks where I press them 2 different ways. There we go, because this will be handy. There we go, okay. Okay, so we've got those and we've got our greens. As I showed you, I mentioned that this is ultimately a 4-patch. Well, until I started putting the squares together and laying them out, excuse me, still struggling a little bit with my cold, I assumed, boy, we're gonna have to be really particular and lay out each block separately to make sure we get our 4 patches right. Guess what? They're ultimately the exact same block. So you've got your 8 of your one fabric, your 8 of your other fabric, and now we're going to put them together and lay them out. And ultimately, you're going to create one 4-patch over and over. So instead of here, so ultimately you've got your 4-patch and you're just going to twist it. So you make one 4-patch, you make 4 4-patches that look just like this. Fabric's put together the exact same way. And then to put your block together, you're going to just twist it 4 different ways. So your triangle is always on the outside. And this is the one where you separated it into 2 different piles for your pressing so that those go together well. So once I laid it out and saw that, I went, oh, well, heck, this is going to go together much faster because you can make a whole bunch of half square triangles and then put them together fairly straightforward, you know, one right after another. So first of all, let's do we need our triangles. So we should be able to just put these together, take one from each pile. There we go. And then put them together. And if you have them laid out right, so each side is pressed the opposite direction, when you lay them together, your seams should nest. So the seam on the bottom is going that way and the seam on the top this way. So we just nest those nicely and pin them. And so you're going to do that to all 4 of these, and you're going to sew where your color, not your background, your color goes together. Okay? So you're going to do those and get those sewed together. Okay? Then, for your other fabric, these are, I always have to think twice. This is where it's really handy to have your template, a colored template in front of you to lay out, to go, okay, there's my green, and I'm going to do the other one opposite. So here, for these blocks, you want to create kind of a strip. You're not creating a triangle, you're creating a strip. So you can take all of your pieces for the other color and do the exact same thing. Now, there's no really matching seams here, so we don't have any nesting. You just flip it over, pin it, and you're going to stitch it there. I'm going to stop here before I start coughing. So I'm going to go sew all those together, then we'll put them into our 4-patch. Now that you have your 2 sides of your 4-patch done, it's time to put them together. Now, when it comes to pressing for my triangle ones, I just chose a side and pressed it that way. And then I discovered, well, basically you can do the same on the other one. Choose which side you want to press it and press it, because guess what? This block set, it looks identical whether you flip it upside down or right side up. So it's the same, because that way, when you put these 2 together, you're going to put them together so that you've got your triangle and your angle. So you're going to want to look at your template to make sure this is laid out right. As long as your triangle is on the outside, don't be putting that on the inside. If that's on the outside, this one, it doesn't matter, because like I said, it's the same no matter how you flip it. So then, as long as you pressed it, so I pressed all my blues one way, so this one, I can just flip it so that my seams are nested. So you're going to put that together, making sure you can nest your seams, and you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch there. So you're going to do that on all of your pairs of your blocks. Okay, then when you get that done, this is a perfect time to do pinwheel for your pressing. Otherwise, you got a pretty serious bump there in the middle that is going to be really icky for somebody to quilt over. So you pull it out a little and then you're going to twist it. So this side, you can see I'm kind of pulling down This I'm pulling up. So in the middle, those little stitches in the middle will just kind of pop. And then basically, I need to quit saying basically. Somebody caught that on one of my videos and said, wow, it's really annoying. You say basically a lot. And you know what? It's one of those things that I often do, and I don't realize I'm doing it until I watch my video later and go, wow, I need to really stop doing that. So here's to not saying basically. So now I have a little pinwheel. So this seam is pressed towards the top, and this is towards the top bottom, and I have this nice little pinwheel in the middle. I will take a picture of that so you can see that a little more up close. You see it there? There we go. So press all of your blocks that way. And look, they're all identical. Well, the other one will be once I sew it together, which is really slick, which means you can just go and get all of these 4 patches sewed together and be done. Then you come back and choose one, set one there. And it really doesn't matter which way you have it. Granted, this template has this way, so I will keep it that way, but it really doesn't matter what direction this block starts at, as long as you have your triangle set of fabrics on the outside. Then you take the next one and you, and you switch. Hang on. You twist it to the right. Put your next one on and you twist it to the right. And you're going to do the same thing for this last one. So your triangle is going to be on the outside always. Then I usually just do them on rows then. I do that and then I put that one over there. I sew it and then you're going to sew those together and then you've got your block together. I have my 2 rows put together and now I'm ready to put them into the 4 patch. Here's the cool thing. Each of your 4 patches here are identical, so you can put a whole bunch of them together. And then you can put 2 of them together where there's your triangle on that side and a triangle at the top. Okay, great. And then you're thinking, but then the rest of them I have to do opposite. Guess what? The bottom half is identical. So you can make a whole bunch of these as long as you're laying them out like that. Then you're good to go, because then when you put them into the final block, you're gonna just turn it to make sure you've got triangle, 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 triangle on the outside. So this really is not as complicated as it looks as far as putting it together. It's all about the basics and knowing the units that you're putting together. Your half square triangles, 8 of your background and each of your colors, 8 of each. And then you're going to put together this piece to create your triangle. And then you're going to put together this piece to create your lines. And you create you create 4 of each of those. Then you're going to put a pair together, just like this, and do a couple of those. And then you put those together and you just twist it. So it's not that hard. I'm going to go put the final pieces on. The key thing with this, with all of the points, is as you're putting them together, make sure that you're matching your seams. And when you have 2 triangle points on your corners, make sure that those line up nice and neat and match in your corner. So you're going to want to pin that. I've got that on both sides here. If you're lucky, your seams are opposite. It's funny, in this one, they are. The first block I did, they weren't always. And then when you're sewing your 1/4 inch, to hit your points and not cut them off, you should I'm not going to use the word basically. You are going to cross that seam and hit right where the intersection of those other seams are. And that ensures you get nice, tight points and you don't end up chopping it off. This is a skill set that this block will help you improve on. And with your cutting accurately, your piecing accurately, and watching those, you're going to be doing just fine in no time because you're going to have lots of practice with them. I'm going to finish pinning this and then get this one done. And ta-da! There we go. It is finished. The Balkan puzzle is a very interesting block. I really do like it. And I'll admit, I've never seen it before, but I think it would make a very, very pretty quilt. There's 2 blocks that I've done. Yeah, it could be very, very pretty with just 3 fabrics. I really wish I had more yellow left so I could do 1 more block, because then I could do a table runner, but pulled it from my stash and I do not have enough yellow to do another block. Otherwise, I'm pretty pleased with that. So there you have it. Another block to improve your skills, more half square triangles, matching your points, and a block that looks really complicated, but it's not. Once you get going on it and can really, do pieces together and then putting them all together at the end, I think it really will go together fairly quickly. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And for those of you that have been waiting for me to do a tutorial since we left Minnesota back, I think the last tutorial I did was probably October. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Take care. Thank you so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. If you want to make sure you don't miss a single video I published, hit the subscribe button below and then hit the bell icon. And that way you will be notified whenever I publish a new video. But you can also find me over on Facebook. Facebook.com/Wendy, the initial J, Haney. Or I have a Facebook group for those of you that love quilting, needlework, books, wine, and wellness. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/lifefulfilled. The name of the group is Life Fulfilled - Quilting, Needlework, Books, Wine, and Wellness. You can also find me over on my website, wendyjhaney.com. I will be doing more blogging over there eventually. As I get more of my videos done, I'll be blogging about those. But also, maybe you see some things that I'm making here and you're going, ooh, wow, I just don't want to make that myself. Well, a lot of those products will end up over there on the website that you can purchase for your friends and family. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I appreciate you watching.